10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6.
Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. My name is Wack. Today is August 29th, and we're going to start here with this amazing news of Grayscale winning their case against the SEC. So, for those of you who don't know, Grayscale operates a bunch of trusts. They have products like GBTC, ETH, and a whole bunch of others, and they kind of act like a kind of ETF, except their fees are really high, and people buy shares in Bitcoin or ETH or Litecoin and a whole bunch of other things that they have on offer, and it's used as an investment purpose for TradFi companies and people through TradFi means basically. Anyway, they had applied to have their trust turned into an ETF. The SEC rejected that, of course, being the SEC that they are, and Grayscale sued them. Of course, since they sued them, a whole bunch of TradFi companies have come out and said that they wanted Bitcoin ETFs as well, and Grayscale now win this lawsuit where the judge ruled that the SEC did not give a good enough reason for rejecting Grayscale's trust application, ETF application, and this is actually a really big deal because the SEC normally isn't supposed to really lose cases like this. They did a really bad job basically in this decision and the argument that they made. So the judge ruling against them is actually a really big deal, and it kind of sent shockwaves through crypto Twitter today that the Grayscale have won this lawsuit. Of course, this doesn't mean that the ETF has automatically been approved. The SEC can come back and give a different reason for rejecting the ETF. However, it looks like it's on the path towards ETF approval. Now, why am I mentioning this on Rocket Fuel? Well, it looks like the ETH futures ETF is going to go live in October, and the SEC, it seems like have almost certainly accepted that, with a Bitcoin spot futures ETF going live. The same arguments that will be made in the Bitcoin ETF will be made for the ETH ETF, and then potentially we could have an ETH spot ETF in the next little while, hopefully within 6 months to a year, which would be absolutely astonishing and really amazing. The next step after that obviously is to get an ETH staking ETF where the shares that you buy would be staked, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. Of course, it's probably most likely almost definitely not going to happen, but imagine if it was an RETH ETF. That would be really cool. Anyway, this was a huge deal. Like, everyone was talking about it. It was like really massive. Here, Veterinary shared it on Discord, saying Grayscale win their suit against the SEC, and it was big news. Like, wowza, and Bitcoin ETF incoming. Of course, the price kind of pumped. RPL is up 6% today. ETH is up 5.5% today. And Bitcoin is up like 7%. I think like even more. So there's a lot of positivity here, and it seems like it is probably one of the foundational pieces of the next bull run is this coming together. So here Jasper says they could still deny the spot, but it seems impossible, and spot decision isn't out. And then the SEC stuff is highly encouraging, in my opinion, for the state of US politics. SEC chairman comes in and expresses purpose to shut down crypto regardless of presidents. Then the court systems works, uses the law and doesn't listen to the SEC chairman, checks and balances. So that's good stuff. And the SEC in process here, Jasper says, has ruined their credibility. So yeah. And then Sneaky says, how did Marceau know? So Marceau put a tweet out yesterday saying that something good is going to happen today, kind of with the Grayscale stuff. People have been expecting the decision to come, and it seems like the court that was dealing with this releases judgments on Tuesdays and Fridays. And this, there's been every week, like for the last few weeks, it looks like the decision is going to come any one of those days. So it made sense that Marceau kind of had a feeling about today, but it worked out. Sorry. I like Logic Point C saying, who's Marceau? I know he's some crypto Twitter anon, but more than that. So he's not crypto Twitter man anon, but yeah. Anyway, it's there's some good jokes here. I'm only seeing them now for the first time, but yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. Anyway, that was really good to see. And then that was even covered, like, in Fortune Crypto, where the court sided with Grayscale and closely watched Bitcoin ETF case, and like the media coverage of that is really growing now. And I think it's only a matter of time before some big things come from this. If you look at the tickers, look, Bitcoin is 6.4% up, XRP is 3.3% up, ETH is 5.2% up, and a whole bunch of others are up also. Yeah, let's go back to Rocket Pool stuff now. So in Rocket Pool news, this is a really cool piece of information that was shared by Langas earlier. He says, hey everyone, we've come up with some potential scoops for the next few releases that are technically feasible. We are keen to kick off the governance process so we can discuss each feature and the release scope and ideally ratify it within the community. Then first is Houston. So in Houston, they're thinking of having PDAO voting, and this has had community discussion. They're thinking of having RPL withdrawal address being separate from the ETH withdrawal address. So a separate RPL withdrawal address and the ability for this address to unstake when possible, and then stake ETH on behalf of a node as well. So allows an address to provide ETH and that a node operator then stakes, means that the node operator does not have to take custody of the funds. And then over here, Langas goes on to says, I can draft up 3 RPIPs for these features. PDAO voting has had community discourse already and positive sentiment. The other 2, I can draft up the RPIPs and submit the governance forum for community discourse. Essentially, the driver of these are the use case that allow RPL to be used more effectively through the protocol and SaaS integrations. Although I will concentrate on Houston first, the next release we would like to put out is Saturn with the following tentative scope. And here it says with Saturn, they want to have Megapools, LEB4s, scrub check, promotion check, and bond reduction check duty, ODAO duties to be removed, and execution layer reward penalty rework. And then Langas goes on to say, once we've had a Houston RPIPs lockdown, it would be good to start discussion on Saturn's features. From a design perspective, we have been working on these already to make sure we can achieve them. Please let me know if you have any feedback on the scopes or on the process. And then there was some discussions here. Jasper says this is a great roadmap, and Val says I'd love to hear some discussion on the process specifically. The question I most want thought on is, do we have a feeling about what dev time is spent on features when, before openly shared as part of the roadmap, before openly part of a particular release, before getting rough community sentiment, before vote? Obviously further down the track we get the costlier it gets to say no to a feature or to significantly change it. The thing that we need to balance, of course, is that sharing early invites more cooks into the kitchen, which can be inefficient. Another question I have is, how should features get parceled into releases? Is that entirely core dev team selected, or do we want a PDAO vote to figure it out, to ratify? Does PDAO select this per feature? AG can have some features say they must be included in the next release, but others should be, or even explicitly say when the dev team decides. And then Noshua shared some quotes from RPIP1. It says, we intend RPIPs to be the primary mechanisms for proposing new features, for collecting community technical input, and for documenting the design decisions of Rocket Pool. Because the RPIPs are maintained as text files in a version repository, their revision history is the historical record of the feature proposal, and it is highly recommended that a single RPIP contain a single key proposal new idea. The more focused the RPIP, the more successful it tends to be. And then Noshua says, in my opinion, draft RPIP should be written much sooner in the process and updated or potentially abandoned. As design evolves and technical feasibility is determined, single issue RPIPs would then allow the PDAO to pick what should go into the next release. So there's some really interesting discussions happening here around governance, roadmaps, and what is coming. But the thing that's really cool to see is Saturn is going to be absolutely amazing in terms of features that are coming to Rocket Pool. So I am really, really excited about that. Okay, Maverick here has a post saying it's that time again. The latest bi-weekly update has been published on Medium. Then there's a link to the Medium post, and then it says a couple of items worth calling out are the vote for RPIP 27, which is live on Snapshot, and the fundraising pot for Ramana, yeah, there you go, is available at checkout.portup.xyz, and then there's a link. And don't forget to tune into the Twitter space hosted by Jasper to discuss the mysterious world of restaking on Thursday, August the 31st at 3 a.m. my local time where I am right now, and I will not be attending that, sorry. But let's have a look at the vote and see where that stands. So the vote currently stands at 60% quorum reached, and 0 votes against, with 1,800 votes in favour and 1,600 votes abstaining. It seems like Val is abstaining. Let's see why Val is abstaining. He says, I agree the proposal was misunderstood. My personal opinion on making marriage easy has always been vacillating, abstaining for the moment. And then, yeah, so I guess that was just another big abstaining vote. I, of course, voted in favour of this proposal. And then next we have the checkout, of course, for Ramana, and 43 POAPs have been sold, which is 2.15 ETH has gone towards Ramana already, which is really nice. So that's really cool. Okay, let's have a look at the bi-weekly update now. And here we start with the RETH supply, which has grown to 514,000, annualized growth of 87%. Pending active mini pool count has increased, annualized growth of 67%, and that's at 24,942. I thought we had already breached 25,000, I guess I'm mistaken. Node operator count has gone up by an annualized growth rate of 34%. Smart node release, here we have 1.10.2 is imminent. We're going to talk about that later. And then R&D, the new design assets are being incorporated into the updated website. Workshops are held on LEB4s and the implications of the proposed Ethereum chain to max effective balance. Work continues on PDAO voting development, RETH reward circulation, API and subgraph changes, and the base exchange rate oracle. Here there was stuff with Wintermute talking about the RPLs changing tokenomics discussions. Feedback was sought for GMC treasury into USDC, and we'll talk about that later as well. And then polls for feedback about adjusting RPL inflation rewards. A proposal was put to the DAO to feature its metrics on an aggregator platform. There was plenty of discussion around the denomination of retrospective awards amounts, and that is going through. A snapshot vote is now live to determine whether Rocket Split should be funded by the GMC, which we already just covered. With integrations, there's Pendle, Equilibria, VMEX, Mellow, Notional, and then Seneca, Balancer V2, Pools, Vulnerability, NBX, protocols with existing RETH integrations, with media marketing. There's a POAP Quest series, and then there was a Ramana's POAP as well, and then Rocket Pool mini pools have been generating the highest 30-day backward APR that we talked about yesterday. Each staker added a disclaimer to their website about the risk of single dominant liquid staking protocol. Of course, that's Lido. Rocket Pool hosted a panel with guests from Bloxroute, all nodes, and AMA with SSV, and two ETH mini pools were teased during the community call. So that's LEB2s, which is pretty cool. And then there was a Spark protocol contributor highlighted leveraged RETH opportunities. Rocket Pool's featured on content for you today, Crypto Atlas, and RPL was listed by any coin direct. But remember to do your own research on all new exchanges. So that was good stuff, Mav. Thank you so much for putting that together. Okay, so this is one of the sentiment polls that was on the DAO website. This is about the changing of the tokenomics. So, there's been discussion happening on the forum about that, about what kind of changes would happen, how it all will look, and how it will all work. And that basically came to a sentiment poll a few days ago. So Val says, all right, folks, discussion has slowed down to a gentle simmer, both here and in research. I'm going to put up 2 polls. One, the sentiment poll, please vote, and then a specific question about the formula, vote or ignore as you wish. So the sentiment poll has things like support moving to a vote. I think this proposal is great. Support moving to a vote. I think this set of documents is good enough, and we shouldn't let perfect be the enemy of good. Oppose moving to a vote. I have specific issues that I'm mentioning in the comments below. Oppose moving to a vote. Other. Undecided. I have specific questions I'd like clarified in the comments below. Or undecided other. So let's have a look what people are saying. 49% of people said this proposal is great. 43% of people said that this document is good enough, and then 4%, which I guess is 2 people, said oppose moving to a vote, and 2 people said they're undecided. And then there was a question about the formula. Do you prefer the natural log variant or the piecewise linear? And it seems like about 2/3 of people prefer natural log, and 1/3 of people prefer the piecewise linear. And then there's a gory formula details that you can check there as well. And then there's some questions and people talking about how that should be voted on. So give that a read if you are interested. Of course, there's a link will be in the description below for you to check out. Okay, this is a really interesting conversation that was only brought to my attention yesterday. It was Jasper and Val talking in Moon's trading channel of all places about LEBs, about Megapools and what kind of collateral curves they will allow, and how it might impact people with more or less ETH. And the Val says, it's a social issue about how much we wish to give better deals to bigger folks mostly, and how much risk we're willing to take to support small folks a bit. If we know the socials we want, the math to support that is easier by comparison. Jasper says, the first one tracks. I don't follow the second one. And then Val says, allowing LEB 8s under a set of assumptions and everyone stealing has a worst case implementation due to allowing one LEB 8 and one LEB 4, etc. So Jasper says, right, same modeling constraints we use for LEB 8, yeah. And then Val shares his research on LEBs 4s and other safety issues. And Val says, I think I had a massive miss of assuming market was unchanging. I think that I had a massive miss, of assuming market was unchanging. I point you to my write-up, the second plot from that link specifically. And then this was in context of Jasper's friend wanting to write a report about what it would look like for megapools and the kind of different bonding curves, like how you let people unlock smaller and smaller collateral amounts for more and more borrowed ETH. And Jasper's friend said that he'd be looking at the most recent Flashbots data that he could find, but yeah, he said I'll forward it along. I don't think there's a fundamental issue though, and Val says that's not good enough. We can't have if the market changes we break. We need to plan for a reasonable worst case market, which is of course fun subjective things to discuss. Regardless, I think the much harder bits are social. So Jasper says, yeah, that's fair. I told him to generate a few curves, e.g. 99% protect, 99.9%, etc. And then Valdo says, how much are we willing to tolerate a weak safety for small folks? How much are we willing to reward big players more? And Jasper says, I think having the numbers is pretty fundamental to having the discussion. Val says, the market changed dramatically. 99.9% of the chill week is more problematic than 99% of a tough week. Market changes can't be ignored. So basically this whole discussion was like, where it's a good idea to set limits And the reason why this conversation was brought up for me was, I was saying maybe this will open up the path to LEB1s for certain users if they have enough collateral, and Val was arguing that maybe LEB1s will never be good, and that there should always be a little bit more space. But this discussion, it goes on for a while longer. Val, Jasper, he's like giving a point. He's saying, I guess I'm not seeing how you go from the worst case analysis to the curve for incremental mini pool bond, e.g. at 40 ETH is node collateral. What's the limitation? It doesn't seem like MEV theft anymore, but just slashing. Where does that shift happen? How steeply does it transition? In the grief attack, you can only steal MEV from one mini pool and grief on n mini pools, but Rocket Pool can slash you on n mini pools. So where is equilibrium risk? And Waldorf says, so the grief is around 1 ETH per validator on top of the MEV theft bit. So read that plot as ETH beyond the slashing ETH. So with 20 validators ETH, we can accept to a 4% loss in yield if everyone is a thief, and we get the worst case market conditions I choose. And then Jasper says, for LEB4s with forced exit, during such a period, the 99.83rd percentile block is just over 6.8 ETH. This would mean roughly 1 out of every 6,500 mini pools would profit from stealing each week. If the market acts like this for a year, roughly 1 in 120 mini pools would profit from stealing. If this was a node with 20 plus validators, it isn't profitable for them to steal though. They lose more than they gain. How are you getting 4% loss in yield? And then Val responds with saying, so if you have 6 validators, I'm talking about 20 plus 6 equals 26 ETH. So LEB 4.33 here, or 2 LEB 8s and 4 LEB 2.5s. That's because, okay, so with 26 ETH, you still wouldn't steal unless you can gain 26 ETH, which is pretty far out on the curve, no? And he says, yes, only stealing those accounts for a 4% loss. And Jasper says that's pretty insane, and Waldorf says, well, it's stealing a few but stealing huge. Remember that block that we had that added a whole day of yield for the whole Rocket Pool network? I'm calculating based on stealing 20 plus, with the other 6-ish needing to be reserved for grief slashing protection. And then Jasper says, I wonder if there's going to be a point of strongly diminishing returns here. If a 26 ETH bond and a 50 ETH bond both led to roughly 4% loss in yield, perhaps you can just eat that. And Val says, yeah, that's the blue line. And Jasper says, oh, and Val says, this is what I'm saying. We need to how much we're willing to eat for small folks and big folks, and how much we're willing to make things more capital efficient for the big boys. And Jasper says, I will ask him to generate curves of various loss degrees. It would help with understanding loss versus scaling potential. What's our current estimated loss? 7.5%. And he says, it's somewhat of a farm framing thing. If we still have 4% loss, but halving from status quo plus induces reduced commission would be very worthwhile. Many factors to consider. So this discussion went on for quite a while. Yeah, you can definitely give it a read. But this discussion, I think, is a really, really interesting one, because there's a whole lot of nuances that will go into it. But it seems like there are limits to the bonds that will be needed, and LEB1s doesn't look like they'll be coming soon, but that's okay. LEB2s would be pretty amazing too, and LEB4s of course would be great as well. So definitely give this a read if you want more details on that discussion. Okay, next we had some updates from Joe. I haven't said that in a while, but yeah, Joe here said that the team's been discussing some spicy options for future improvements, and at some point in the next couple of months there will likely be a pretty exciting grant request that Joe will have to recuse himself from. So Sneaky says GUI incoming, and Shifrin says, you mean a bounty request? And he says, no, I mean a grant request. Patches says GUI is inevitable, that's graphical user interface. And Sneaky says, is it a request from Grant? Grant, of course, being a new team member. Man, how confusing is it to have someone named Grant on the team now? But yeah, that's a nice little tease from Joe there. And then Joe, of course, teased yesterday that he was, or earlier today, that he was going to do a new smart node stack version 1.10.2, and then he's going to start working on version 2. However, there were some issues and Joe wasn't able to get out 1.10.2, so he says it's slightly delayed because it includes a fix for Thomas, and 1, I need Thomas to test it, and 2, I need to test it for everyone else, so expect it to be a day or 2 probably, so we can expect that to happen soon also. And Thomas, of course, is looking to play some games with his node. We already know that he's actively reducing bond whenever there's any premium, like it starts to creep up. Thomas has been like kind of arguing a little bit, and he's saying, is it time to buy more RPL, because his RPL collateral is down to 113.59%, and basically he said, should I buy it more or would I get rugged by the staking discussion if I did that? Genuine question, not sure to start a fight, haven't been closely following the thread. And Patchy says, well, if you're long, presumably it's not because you want to maximize the 3.5% hypothetical returns on RPL. And Dibsy says, shh, let him do it. And Patchy says, and the rebalancing of inflation to encourage more mini pools is good for growth, and growth is probably good for price, though they aren't always related. Thomas says, gotcha. Patchy says, on the other hand, Thomas says, it seems like a kind of change that's probably good long term, possibly bad short term. Patchy says, you get diminishing returns on staking above 15% collateral on New World compared to someone who stakes a bit less. And Thomas says, thanks for the TLDR. Bossy says, yes, it's time to buy more. I said, yeah, sure, Thomas, buy up. I said, and then Patchy says, but do consider not staking until there's clarity on the vote going. And I said, if the vote goes through, you'll be allowed to unstake a much lower collateral percent. Patchy says, that's true, but not immediately. And then there'll be a while after the vote passes with audits and stuff like that. So Thomas says, I can see how this is divisive. But yeah, there's sentiment poll, and then it's going to go to vote maybe. So that looks like that vote is coming. So definitely ask your questions now before any vote happens. And you can ask in the forum, you can ask on Discord, you can ask in a whole different places. And here, I said to Thomas, you should be part of the discussion in the forum, and Thomas says, definitely planning on doing that. I've been catching more things after a big Arrow meetup and moving to Marfa, and this is high on my list of things for this week. I said, your voice is very important for someone who is as RPL heavy as you are. So I think that was a really nice insight into Thomas's thinking, which was really good. And then of course Thomas went ahead and staked 188,000 RPL, because why not? So just Thomas things. So a new milestone hit of 9.5 million RPL staked. So we are now at 9.622 million RPL staked by node operators. So good job, Thomas. Okay, I really like this piece of news that came out from blockchain.news. It's from Louisa Crawford, who says Rocket Pool GMC Treasury considers USD diversification to stabilize RPL value. It's an article about Dondo's proposal to, sell some RPL from the GMC's portion of inflation every month and change that into USDC. And that mainly is to attract grants from people who don't want to really deal with RPL. And then Dondo gets a huge shout out in this article as well. So I was really proud of my man Dondo for this. So good job, Dondo. Doing cool work on the GMC. I really like to see that. Here the smoothing pool had a big block that was added to it. It was a 1 ETH block. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because the smoothing pool for this month has now reached 500.751 ETH. I think it's a bit higher than that now. Let's have a look. It's okay, yeah, it'll be somewhere in the area. And yeah, the smoothing pool has 500 ETH in it, which is really, really amazing. Let's actually see if someone called that more recently. Yeah, right here. So we are now at 507 ETH, which I think will put us definitely as the second biggest smoothing pool month ever. I doubt it's going to reach number one unless we get another one of those like miracle blocks. But that's over 26 days and 14 hours, so we've just got a day and a half to go, and that will be done. So that is really cool. Okay, next I was going to give a little update on Ramana's PWAP, but we already talked about that earlier. So there have been 43 PWAPs sold now to support Ramana for losing the big chunk of our ETH, 32 our ETH, and you can buy this PWAP just for supporting Ramana, and all the RPL is going towards him for just as a way of saying, sorry mate, that sucks. Yeah, so he's at over 2 ETH now in terms of donations. Like you can see here, there's 43 PWAPs sold, so that was really wonderful that people are helping out so nicely. Okay, next a little piece of something happened in trading today that really brought a smile to my face, which is the return of Kevster to the Rocket Pool Discord. Kevster was not around for a while, and now Kevster's back, so that was really nice. Kevster says I was going to complain my node is under collateralized and leave again, but yeah, Kevster's back, which is really nice. Kevster gave a little bit of an update about where he's been. He's been up on travels and like doing some really cool stuff, so we're really happy that Kevster's back and that he's doing well, much better than he was before he left. So welcome back, Kevster. It's so nice to have you here, and also it's nice that I got one more regular Rocket Fuel watcher coming back to the fold. You can see that he sat down today. Let me see if I can find the image that he shared. He sat down today to catch up on Rocket Fuel. So he says, let's catch up. And there's a picture of him watching Rocket Fuel. So welcome back, Kevster. If you have any questions or anything about Rocket Fuel while you were gone, you can reach out to me or any others. And I'm looking forward to you getting back into submissions. So yeah, welcome back. Okay, I'm going to finish with this post from Ryan Sean Adams, who is a co-host on Bankless, and he says Lido is almost at 33%. How worried should we be about this? So I replied to Ryan here by saying you should be very worried, and then I followed up by that saying that so much so that I would say Bankless has a responsibility to stop advertising with any protocols that deeply integrate Lido. Anthony Sassano says, not going to lie, asking this question to crypto Twitter is not going to get you an answer since the collective IQ around here is in single digits. I'd give my answer, but it's so much too long and nuanced for the likes of this platform. Plus, I talk about it all the time on the daily go anyway. Confucius says, I'd love to see some debate the pros and cons of this on Bankless. And other people are saying they should be very worried about this. And yeah, this is something that is worrying. So there's a whole lot of discussion that's coming about this like Lido issue at the moment. It really helps that Ethereum core developers are kind of bringing up this point as well. And 32% is not good. So I really hope that we can get that down, and we can all work together getting that down. Stopping advertising for products that are Lido related only is definitely a good start, and hopefully other products can launch without any integrations with Lido, but that is not happening. I'm kind of thinking of things like Gravitar or other products like that. Instead of starting with your usual suspects, they should just start without Lido or Coinbase, and hopefully in the next few months we'll be in a position where we have a few other LSTs that are strong enough and established enough that they can start being used instead of Lido. But it's kind of a shame, really. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. I hope you all had a great day, and thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.